The Ragnaros fight doesn't actually go from 100% to 0%. Of course, he starts at 100%, but the fight actually ends at 10%. If you were to divide that remaining amount of health up into three different sections, that's basically where you get the three different phases of the fight, split by two different intermissions. One is at 70%, and the other is at 40%. The 70% intermission just spawns Sons of Flame. These Sons of Flame move very fast until they get below 50% health, but they also have very little health, so it doesn't take much to get them to slow down significantly. The goal during these intermissions, and trust me, this is a very big goal that's going to take a lot of coordination to get. It's actually probably one of the harder parts of the fight. Otherwise, Ragnaros is pretty much a tank and spank. The goal of this is to slow down the adds and then kill them before they reach Ragnaros' hammer, which is smashed on the ground in any of three spots. You have on the left, which we'll consider to be scenario A, the middle, which is scenario B, and the right, which is scenario C. There's always 8 adds, and whenever he slams it down, it's called splitting blow. Whenever he slams it down, the 8 fireballs spray out from the hammer and land on 8 predetermined locations based on which scenario we're talking about. As you can see here, I'm alternating between A, B, and C to show you the relative locations. You'll notice that 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are always going to be in the same spots. The only thing that changes is the locations of 3, 4, 5, and 6. They shift around based on where the hammer is. So if the hammer is all the way to the left, you can consider that to be in the 3 spot, shifting the entire group to the right 1 spot and taking up 1 extra spot on the right side of the room. Similarly, if it's on the right side, it shifts the middle 4 to the left 1 spot, and so that there's 5 on the left side of the room, left of the midline, and 1 between the midline and the hammer, and then, of course, 2 to the right of the hammer. What you're going to want to do for this intermission is to set up a couple of different groups of people. One is your at least 2 melee that will always take, in scenarios A and B, they will always take the short side, which is, if it's on the left, you're talking about positions 1 and 2. If it's on the right, you're talking about positions 7 and 8. They will always be on the opposite side of the hammer from everyone else to take out those 2 most immediate threats to your raid. Because, see, if any one of these guys reaches the hammer, they inflict like 115k, 120k damage to the entire raid. Everyone in the raid gets hit like that, and so if anyone is not topped off, they're going to die. You may be able to survive 1, you'll definitely not be able to survive 2 of these guys hitting the hammer. It's just not going to happen. So, you want to slow them down and kill them. That's 2 different actual tasks that you want to assign to people. The 2 melee that are on, let's say in scenario A, they're on 1 and 2. You want them to slow and kill 1 and 2. Once they have slowed and killed 1 and 2, they can shift around and be the kill squad for the rest of the raid. All they care about is killing things that are closest to the hammer at that point. So if anything leaks through, they're basically stopping those leakers from getting to the hammer. They're like acting as a final defense. So they're not out helping to slow other things. They just need to trust that other people in the raid are going to be able to do their job. So basically, they are the first to get 2 kills, and then they shift around to the other side of the hammer, and they act as a defensive force to kill things that are getting close. Because basically what everyone else is going to be doing is slowing and releasing. They slow and release away from that mob and then go to the next mob to slow it. That's the most important thing that those people can do. There are the slowers, and then there are the killers. The killers are going to be those melee and maybe the tanks, at least initially, and then the slowers are going to be your ranged and the other people on the long side in scenarios A and C. So, for example, let's just run through a couple scenarios here. we have, let's say, a raid composition of an enhancement shaman and a feral druid, and then let's say we have a hunter, a mage, and a rogue. So we're a little melee heavy. That's fine. We're going to put the enhancement shaman and the druid as our kill squad. They are going to be on the most immediate threats 1 and 2, or 7 and 8, for the left and the right. Let's just go for the left hand side for now. All right, kill squad takes out 1 and 2. Rogue takes out slows down 3, shifts over to the right hand side to help with any of those 5 that are getting through. He may hit 4, he may hit 5, he may hit 6. He's probably not going to be able to get to 7 or 8. Your hunter, because he's got faster instant casts like arcane shot and a chimera shot or whatever, will take out 5 and 4 together with the help of the rogue. 6 may be leaking through. So the rogue needs to be careful about 6 as well. The arcane mage is over at 7 and 8 and will be slowing them down as well. So here's the whole situation in real time. In all of these scenarios, the red dot means a fast-moving mob, the X means a slowed mob, and the skull means a killed mob. Here we have that same situation in scenario A with melee only. At this time, I'm only showing mobs that the melee have to deal with in the state that they have to deal with them. Now this is scenario A, ranged only. Again, we're only showing mobs in the state that the ranged has to be concerned about. As you can see, everything is handled, everything goes down. It's essentially mirrored for situation C, where the hammer goes down on the right. You have the 2 melee killing 7 and 8, shifting around the hammer to kill 3 that's now slowed because the rogue has taken care of that and has moved on to not 3, I'm sorry, 6. The rogue has slowed down 6 and has moved on to 3 to take him or to slow him down, because the hunter is taking out 4 and 5 and the mage is taking out 1 and 2. Tanks should be always aware at this stage and be a final defense with stuns like Holy Wrath. Shockwave, whatever they can to stun or slow these guys or do damage to them to take them out. Healers should never really have to worry about it. They should basically, the healers and tanks group, which is represented by orange, the orange dot here, should be not having to worry much about the ads, because at 40% in the second intermission, the tanks are going to have to be picking up big ads that they need to keep away from the group and then subsequently tank and take down. So if you don't have to rely on your tanks at all, that's ideal. You want to only have to rely on your 5 DPS. The healers, we shouldn't have to ask them to DPS anyway, because that's a waste of their mana. So just using your 5 DPS, you can take down all of these ads if you do a split of shifting, where you have your kill squad and your slow squad. The kill squad slows and kills the closest 2, and then picks up any of the other ones that are coming towards the hammer, and they act as a second to last defense. The tanks will act as a final defense, but you have your other 3 DPS slowing all the other mobs. The entire job is to slow, while the job of the melee is to kill. If you wanted to just break it up that way, the job of the melee is to kill, and the job of the ranged is to slow them down. So now we're going to look at scenario B, and this one is kind of different, because see, in A and C you have the short side, like A you have 1 and 2, B or C you have 8 and 7, that are the most pressing things, and they're right next to each other and they're easy to kill. The thing with scenario B is that you have 4 pairs of equally distant spots, and going from the middle outward, those are the ones that need to be taken care of first, second, third, fourth, each pair. So the pair of 4 and 5 here need to be taken care of first. 3 and 6 are the second priority. 2 and 7 are going to be the last priority. If you'll notice, they're actually further away, I believe, than 1 and 8, or they could be equidistant. 1 and 2, 7 and 8 could all be very well be equidistant, but they are farther than the middle 4. So here's what you got to do in this situation. You're wanting to split your DPS, your melee DPS pair, and your tanks, because if this happens in the second transition when you have the big ads come out, they come out on either side of the midline, and so you want one tank to pick up one tank to pick up the other, while they're also slowing 4 and 5, for example. So your kill squad of your enhancement shaman and feral druid would split left and right. So let's say the feral druid goes to 4 and the enhancement shaman goes to 5. You also have a pally and a warrior, just to so that we can use different colors. The pally would go to 4, the warrior would go to 5, and so they would help each other out. But that means that you have 2 ranged and 1 melee left over to handle other things. What you're going to want to do probably is, that extra melee, most people have only 2 melee, so that third melee could be a melee or a ranged. You want to hold that person in reserve to be standing right in front of the hammer and looking all around for guys that escape. That's your safety valve right there. That third melee or ranged is going to be your safety valve. So then you split your ranged, your hunter would go to 3. Not 1 and 2, but 3, because that's the most pressing need. And then your mage would go to 6. And slow them and then move outward to, the hunter goes to 2, then 1, the mage goes, 6, 7, 8. And they slow them in that order. And if you know that your ranged is going to slow them in that order, you also know that the most likely thing to get to the hammer is going to be 1 or 8, and your safety valve can be watching for those. They don't actually go through the lava. They barely skirt the lava, so even if it's a melee class, they can get to it. This also allows, the melee that have slowed and possibly killed 4 and 5, by the time they do that, they can collapse back to the hammer on either side of it and get 1 and 8 and keep them from hitting the hammer. That's probably your best bet, is to have 4 and 5 be taken out by melee, 3, 2, 1 on the one side by ranged, 6, 7, 8 in that order on the other side by the other ranged, leaving 1 and 8 to be the most pressing or most vulnerable ones to get to the hammer. And if the melee that are taking out 4 and 5 know that, they know that they can collapse back to the hammer and flank it on either side to be a safety valve for those ones that may get through. That's how you take care of the Sons of Flame on Ragnaros. Everyone just needs to know their role. I'm going to go through this scenario B in real time now. Please note that the tanks don't move anywhere after 4 and 5 go down, so they can pick up the big ads if this is the second splitting blow. And here we have melee only, with only the mobs that they're concerned with. Note that the rogue notices number 7 and goes to intercept. And finally, ranged only, with only the mobs that they are concerned with. Basically, to break it down, of your 5 DPS in the raid, you're going to have 2 melee that are going to be doing your close-in killing of the most valuable targets, and then going around and killing all the things that have been slowed that are getting close to the hammer. They're your close-in support. Then you have your ranged that are going around and slowing everything that they possibly can, and only after everything is slowed do they actually go around and kill things. That way you have an overlapping realm of responsibility for, one is their primary goal is to slow things, the other one their primary goal is to kill things. That way everything gets taken care of. So generally, what you have is 2 melee that are assigned to killing things that are slowed and the things that are closest to the hammer. You have 2 ranged that are in charge of slowing everything they can and then killing things when everything is slowed. And then you have your wild card, the safety valve, that goes around. Either can be a melee or a ranged, that goes around and slows things that may be leaking through and getting to be too close. He's like your wild card that goes around and just uses his brain, figures out what needs to be hit. And that way, your tanks, they don't ever have to get involved if they don't want to. Your healers, they can save their mana, and everyone gets these things down, and you win. Thanks for watching, and I hope I've been helpful. If you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below.